when you're an early stage startup, there's only three things that matter, and that's selling the product, coding, and talking to your customers. Period. Right? If you can master those three things, you will evolve into the leader that you want to be.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We are stoked. We have with us today Sriharsha Guduguntla, who is the co-founder and CEO of Hyperbound, YCOM alum from summer of 2023. And formerly, he was on the Salesforce Einstein team working on their AI chat builder. Sri is also a former founding engineer at Bloom, which was a financial education startup. And with his background in conversational AI and edtech, he shared with us, and will share with you, that he's super excited to be building the next generation of sales coaching and training, which we all know is a space that desperately needs some help. Sri, thanks for joining us, man.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Sri,
Adam.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here and really excited to get this thing going.
Yeah, Adam passed the first test. He was able to say your last name and first name. So
I asked before we started recording. I went through it 5 times with him.
Awesome.
I feel that.
Shri,
I still
it's
fuck
a
up
very
your
difficult
last name.
name.
Yeah, well,
and
I'll just say Shri because I will definitely mess up the last name. So one of the things we like to talk to founders about as we go through this conversation is the origin story. Like, why did you guys build what you're building? What was the connection? You've done a lot of interesting work through conversational AI in the AI space. So why go after this, and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, 100% Dale. I mean, I won't lie, it's been a long journey to get here. And, finding a gap in sales tech is one of the most difficult things to do because, it's notoriously like just super overcrowded, very saturated. There's 100 different clones of the same product. So it was not easy finding the problem that we did. But, I can tell you what happened is like we went through Y Combinator last summer. For people that aren't familiar with Y Combinator, it's a startup accelerator. And, we raised our first seed round after Y Combinator. And through that, we were actually working on a different idea before this. It was like an email automation, Lavender, Reggie competitor, essentially. Right. And that product, we had a really good product. We had a lot of customers. Problem was that the email channel is kind of at a downtick right now. Right. So we decided, maybe this wasn't where we wanted to be for the next 10 years. And so we just talked to our customers back then, talked to over hundreds and hundreds of sales leaders, and found that training was just one of the most difficult things to do. Right. And the question that we asked just naturally, because we're both engineers, we're not salespeople by trade. So we're like, why don't you just build an AI that you can practice with, right? Because that's what we did when we started our company initially. We built this chatbot internally that we'd practice like objection handling with, because that's just how we do things. And naturally, we talked about that with sales leaders, and they were like, "Huh, like, could you build that for anyone?" And we were like, probably, right? And that's how kind of Hyperbound was born. And we built the first bot back then, showed it to a bunch of leaders, and it's evolved over time. Product is just way ahead of where it was on day one. So just really, really glad that we found something that's solving a real need.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the space. First off, I'm glad that you didn't go into the email space. I think that it's crowded, it's confusing, and I think that even with AI, I would say it's gotten worse, not better. Unfortunately, like the emails I get from AI are so obviously AI. Hey, Adam, I hope you're doing well. So I'm glad you pivoted away from that, because I think that when you look at where the need is and where AI can help the most, it's definitely in like training and developing, and how do we bring it all full circle. But a lot hasn't been tied into, right? Like sales training is this underappreciated undervalued thing in orgs, that it's like, oh, we'll just hire some enablement person and they'll like put together a slide deck on training. Like, talk to me about your philosophy on training and how it comes full circle with Hyperbound, because I think it starts with that philosophy, right? Like, what should training be?
Yeah, 100%. So the way we think about it is, you have tools like Gong and Attention and all these, call recording tools that claim to coach your reps and clone your best performer, right? And in some ways, it makes sense, right? You're basically taking these calls, analyzing them, figuring out what went wrong, what you could improve on, and then trying to impart that advice back to your reps, trying to close the loop, right? But the problem with that is it's reactive coaching, right? You're doing this all after the deal completed. And so it's more like a post-mortem rather than like a proactive approach, right? So what we're trying to do at Hyperbound is basically just change the entire way training is done, right? Like, instead of, trying to go fix everything after the deal has closed, after you've lost it, actually taking a more proactive approach and preparing for it ahead of time using a tool like Hyperbound, where you can jump into a simulated environment, practice for that scenario before it even happens, right? And being able to anticipate that. So, now what you can do is use tools like Gong to basically anticipate what scenarios might come up and proactively prepare your reps for those situations in the future, right? So when you say philosophy, I wouldn't say there's anything too complicated here. Every sales leader knows that practice and preparation's very key to, having a successful sales call. It's just that up till now, there was no way to really implement that or, actually go out and build these simulations. And we've kind of built this tool that makes it very easy to build those scenarios and build those simulations for your reps to practice.
Yeah, it's super important to get the practice. We just launched a conversation with Larry Long Jr. and he was talking about, like, if you're not practicing, if you're not executing, if you're not doing it when everyone else is looking on the side, like not on game day, but actually when you should be practicing off hours, then you're not going to be successful. So I love that you're doing it. I think it's ripe for a disruption in this industry, and I think it's needed heavily. One of the things that many of our founders that we talk with deal with are these setbacks. So you talked about one of your setbacks, which was, hey, we went down one path on the email marketing or the email front, but found that was not going to be something that worked out well. What's another setback that you guys ran into that actually became a setup for success in the future of Hyperbound?
Yeah, so, I think it was just being very real about the situation of email. Like, when we first started it, like we were just, as most engineers or technical founders tend to be, it's like, okay, if we build a better product, we can succeed, right? So our goal was just, let's just build a better product than Lavender. Let's just build a better product than Reggie.ai, right? And
Who has also totally pivoted, by the way.
yeah, they're all pivoting. They're all pivoting for sure. And we knew that we could build a better product, because it's not that we don't have the technical skills to do so, but it was more like, can we actually build build a product that just writes better emails? And we did so, right? We did that. But I think the problem was, even with really good emails and really good content, people were not getting the response rates that they wanted, right? And that's a big problem that we just could not solve or overcome. So we just realized we just had to come to the hard truth that, like, okay, this is not our fault. This is just email as a whole right now, right? So customers, we found, were just starting to move to other channels. And primarily, like, how it is, 2024 has literally been the age of cold calling. Like, it's, people are just jumping on the phones now more than ever. So it's just a really great time for us to jump into this space and see what we can do to disrupt it.
So I agree with you 100% that people are jumping on the phones more than ever. And as someone who does take cold calls, Dale doesn't, I do. But as someone who does take cold calls, I can tell you they're not getting a whole lot better. I have a stepson that just started a BDR role for the very first time ever. And I could tell you the training he got was like, here's your lead list, go listen to a couple gong calls and go make a phone call.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of training, which is frustrating. So what you're saying resonates to me deeply on a personal level. How do you differentiate what you're doing from the gongs of the world, other than like, oh, you could just, it's real time and proactive versus reactive? But to me as a sales leader, it's more than that, right? Because most sales leaders are going to say, well, I have my team go, listen to gong, and then we manually role play. Like, how would you handle that scenario? How is Hyperbound different? How are you changing the game?
Yeah. So, the whole point of Hyperbound is, so here's the thing, right? It's like if you take like the athlete example, right? So like right now, the athletes, like let's take basketball because I'm a big basketball fan, right? Now you play a basketball game and you actually go home, watch the tape, you review it, you like review with the coach, right? And then you go out and try to not make those same mistakes the next game, right? But if someone just told the player like, "Hey, just shoot better. Make sure make sure you make your free throws," right? Are they actually going to go do that in the real game, right? What they're going to do is they're going to go to the gym, shoot 1,000 free throws until they get it right? You even see pros like, the best players in the world, like Steph Curry, LeBron James, they have been shooting free throws for 25 years and they still shoot them every day,
Yep.
right? So I think the point that we're trying to get across here is you're doing the post analysis. That's great, right? And you're telling your reps, like, here's what you need to improve on, here's what you need to do. Now, how do you actually get them to do that? How do you actually hold them accountable? Like that, how do you actually hold them accountable to what they're doing after that? Right? Because there's no way to know unless they hop on the next call, mess that one up also, and then you have to go tell them again and remind them again. Right. But Hyperbound, you can actually just build a simulation inside of Hyperbound and tell them, hey, go do a simulation of this 100 times. And I'm going to go verify that you did it correctly because we're going to have all the AI scorecarding. In fact, coaches don't have to do much work to actually analyze these calls. We're doing most of the heavy lifting. And that way you can see, okay, is this rep qualified? Have they figured out how to handle this objection? Are they certified, essentially? Right. So it's just a way of giving people like, like a way to practice, like I've been saying the whole time, essentially. And that's like the big differentiator between Gong and us. Like, I wouldn't even say we're really competitors,
Sure.
we're on very different sides of the table.
Yeah, and I
Love
think
it.
I think there is a place where you guys can kind of coexist because what they're doing and where you guys are going, I think, are two different. It's like a niche play. Um, so, as a founder, one of the things I'm curious about a lot is the evolution of your leadership style. So, you were an engineer to begin with. You started doing engineering. Now you're moving into like a founder role, which arguably should always be the best sales resource in the company. So how are you evolving as a leader for your organization as you guys grow?
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
That's a great question. And it's one of the things that I am actively working on as well. It's the nice part is when you're an early stage startup, there's only three things that matter. And that's, selling the product, coding, and talking to your customers, period. Right. If you can master those three things, you will evolve into the leader that you want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to become the expert in your space. You're going to become the person that's closest to your customers, that knows them in and out and what they want, right? So I don't really think of it as like this whole self-improvement journey where I got to read all these books or like learn how to become a leader. I see it as, okay, let me focus on the three things that will get me to become successful. get me to become the expert that I want to be. And, over time, those skills are going to develop and those are going to come as we build the company. Of course, there's a lot of other things that come with this, right? Eventually, we're going to have a big team. We're going to have employees that we're going to have to manage. So there's going to be some leadership skills that I'll need to kind of learn on the fly as we do that. So I'm looking forward to it. I've always been one to take a challenge. So I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's good, like breaking things into smaller chunks, like threes. Like I think people can digest that. So I think that's a good strategy. And I think founders listening to this conversation, like start breaking things into smaller pieces and don't try to take everything all together. I like that advice.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to double click on the leadership, because you talked about things that a lot of people I think overlook, that as you grow, you're going to have a team and you're going to have to hire people, and there's other skills that you have to learn. We talk with a lot of founders, both on this podcast and off this podcast, and coach a lot of founders through that growth. How are you looking at resources or coaching or guidance on to learn those skills? Because it's not as simple as saying, oh, I'm gonna pick this book and it's going to teach me how to be a better leader. It's going to teach me how to manage people. Do you have a group of other founders that you interact with? Talk to me a little bit about that leadership evolution and how you're going about it.
That's a great question. Yeah. So, lucky enough for us, having gone through Y Combinator was a huge, huge push in the right direction, right? Like when we joined YC, I've never done a sales call in my life. So YC definitely, prepared me for a lot of the scenarios that were going to come up, prepared me for how to speak with investors, how to actually, take a sales call, how to run a sales cycle, right? Just some of the basics. And, a lot of it comes down to just applying it and seeing it kind of unfold in real life, right? And I won't lie, even a tool like Hyperbound helped me a lot with prepare. Our own tool helped me become a better salesperson, right? And on top of that, I would also say, I can't speak to employee management and all that stuff right now. We have one employee at the moment, so it's hard to say.
That's still one to manage, though.
Exactly.
You manage this guy all the time. It's tough.
It's tough. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, what that's going to look like down the line, but, I'm always one to kind of just adapt, learn on the fly. I'm not trying to force anything or trying to go out and watch a bunch of self-improvement videos to improve. I believe that doing it, going through it, making the mistakes, that's the only way to learn.
Awesome. At Revenue Reimagined, we believe giving back to the community. You've been gracious enough to provide a gift to the audience. Why don't you tell them what it's all about?
Yeah, 100%. So basically, we build a lot of bots on Hyperbound. We have thousands and thousands of bots that we built over the period of the last couple of months. So, I would be very happy to build a custom bot for everyone that watches this podcast. And we can we'll have that built for you. And
that's a lot of bots.
Yeah, a lot of bots. And yeah, we'll have a link that you can actually access and start talking to the bot and try selling to it. And we'll have a scorecard as well to see how well you do on the call.
I love that.
That's super cool. We'll drop that in the show notes. I want to talk about, as you grow, especially coming out of Y Combinator, times have changed over the past, 18 months or so. Excuse me. And now it's really important to balance growth versus sustainability, right? It used to be go hire as fast as you can, as many people as you can, and go spend as much money as you possibly can, because God knows we're just going to get the money back. And now that's changed to, we want you to grow quickly, but it has to be in the sustainable, slow, steady manner. How do you balance that growth versus sustainability? And what are some of the hard choices you've had to make in doing so?
That's a great question. I am a first-time founder, so there's a lot of things that I am kind of learning through making those mistakes and making taking bold steps that are kind of scary at times, right? But I think the one mantra that we've had at Hyperbound, and I think thanks to YC as well, has just been basically be as lean as possible and do things only when you need them, right? So what I mean by that is if let's say like hiring, right? Pretty much every company that went through our batch during YC had already hired people. Like they had like multiple engineers, they had people contracting for them, they had designers, all that kind of stuff. We didn't hire until 2 weeks ago. Our first employee came 2 weeks ago. This is 8 months into the company, right? And it was very much intentional, right? Not that we didn't need the help. Of course, we needed the help. But I think Otto and I have always been just advocates of like, let's do as much as we can with the resources that we have. And when we reach the tipping point where we can't handle it anymore, that's when we're going to hire. Right. And so even after getting traction for the company, first month and a half, January, February, even like first week of March, like we were like, okay, we can do this. We can do this until we reached a point where we're like, we have way too much work and not enough bandwidth. And that's when we decided to hire. Right. So that's the way I like to think about it, at least in terms of like how to balance the growth and sustainability. It's more like, let's spend money when we need it. Let's get employees when we need them. Let's buy resources as needed. It's never like we're never gonna do anything because we just feel like it or something like that. It's always gonna be
Smart.
out of
Love that. I love that. Let's wrap this thing up with a little bit of rapid fire. An answer, a word or two. Let's fire them off.
Sure.
So, first one. If you weren't in tech, what profession would you be in and why?
That's a great question. So most people don't know this, but I actually have a YouTube channel and an Instagram and a TikTok where I basically make covers. Like, I'm a sing. I like to sing on the side. I also play the cello and the piano a little bit. And so, yeah, I just love
Nice.
to make covers. I've done a couple music videos here and there. So yeah, catch me on
Very
YouTube.
cool.
Yeah, so
That's super
to
cool.
answer your question, I would love to become a musician, if not for tech, but that is like definitely a pipe dream.
Cool.
Nice. What's the one word you would use to describe your startup journey so far?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I'm just gonna cop out here and say difficult.
That's okay. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not easy for sure. So
Yeah,
difficult.
that's difficult. Hey, that's good. What's the first app you check when you wake up?
That's a good question. Oh no, this is gonna be bad. LinkedIn. It's
That's okay.
evolved. It wasn't always LinkedIn. It used to be like Facebook or Instagram. I
Yeah.
guess, yeah. Now it's LinkedIn for sure. Yeah.
All right, last one, and I'm going to bring it back to you wanting to have a career in music. What is this one song that comes to mind that gets you in the zone for work?
Yeah, it's a tough one too. I mean, I have a lot of songs that I like, but yeah, mostly like I actually sing a lot of Indian music, like Hindi music, Telugu music, Tamil music.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's actually a lot of Hindi music that I love to listen to that most people watching this podcast probably don't know, but you know, uh, yeah, that's my go-to.
I love it. Awesome. Dale's going to let me wrap it up. I was waiting for him to wrap it up. Sriharsha, thank you so much for joining us, talking about your founder journey, talking about your product, your company, your leadership, and where you guys plan on going. We're excited to follow along. Where can folks find you? Where could they learn more about you? I'm going to guess LinkedIn, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, Adam and Dale. Basically, if you guys want to reach out to me, feel free to just message me on LinkedIn or feel free to go follow our Hyperbound page on LinkedIn. You can also visit hyperbound.ai to try out some of our free demo bots on our website. And if you are absolutely dying for a demo, just shoot us an email at founders@hyperbound.ai and we'll be happy to prioritize you.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.